Welcome everyone to today's LinkedIn Live session brought to you by CGI on enabling seamless banking customer experience legacy modernization in Canada. I'm Sheila Mason, Vice President Alliance Management at CGI and also the Microsoft Canada Alliance Lead. I'm very excited today to be your moderator. So we're joined by an expert panel to guide us through what promises to be an insightful discussion as we explore the strategies, trends, and real-world examples that are shaping digital transformation in financial services with the end goal of creating that better customer experience. So we're going to get started by inviting our panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll start with you, Nick.
Great. Thank you, Sheila and CGI for inviting me to this discussion. Really happy to be here, and thank you very much to the audience for joining us. My name is Nicholas Targus. I'm VP Canadian Banking Engineering at Scotiabank. I have over 20 years of banking technology experience in both Canadian and international regions. And a little bit more about myself is I'm very passionate about global solutions and reusable capabilities, and I get really excited when a piece of tech gets picked up and reused by another business line or region.
Thank you, and Craig.
Hello, everyone. I'm never going after Nick again. Nick, that was a hell of an intro. For those of you who haven't had the honor to meet, my name is Craig Ballard. I run the Canadian banking business here at Microsoft. For the past 12 years, I've worked in a variety of roles across our insurance, wealth, capital markets businesses, and prior to that, ran a series of data and AI startups. I'd like to echo Nick's comments as well as Sheila's, and I want to thank my friends at CGI and Scotia for their partnership. And just everyone for joining today. I know how difficult time is. Super excited about the topic today. AI, automation, topic of mind for everyone. So looking forward to getting to a healthy discussion with what Sheila dubbed as an expert panel. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you. And Gaurav.
Thank you, Sheila. And looks like I'm doing the most difficult job of going the last. Gaurav Janeja, Vice President, Financial Services at CGI. Over 25 years of experience, mostly in financial services. Super happy and passionate about bringing new technologies and bringing the partner ecosystems to service our clients like Scotiabank and bringing new solutions to forefront, which help all of us as end customers to have a even more smoother interaction with the banks. Once again, thank you everyone for joining in, and thanks for the partnership, Craig and Nick.
All right. Well, thank you to our panelists. And so let's just dive in. So we'll start with some research findings. According to CGI's Voice of the Client survey, modernizing IT applications and infrastructure is the #1 priority for organizations worldwide. But 40% face significant challenges with legacy systems. And according to recent IDC research, 78% of Canadian businesses expect application modernization to be a major focus in the coming years. We know that legacy infrastructure presents both operational challenges for banks as well as modernization opportunities. So Nick, starting with you, can you describe for us some of the challenges that your team has seen or is continuing to see as you modernize legacy IT environments?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. It's definitely something top of mind. We're seeing definitely like higher maintenance costs, due to that aging and legacy technology, dealing with software currency, dealing with vulnerabilities. All these things take time to remediate and take away from, modernization type activities. We have to spend more time, building complex integrations to some of this older tech as well. We're also seeing like shrinking job pools of skills for this legacy applications or tech, and that can make it really difficult to staff up appropriately. And in some unique cases, sometimes maybe even actually understanding, what the underlying code is doing because of it's just so old. We see lots of operational inefficiencies with numerous customizations and duplication of capabilities, and this can really weigh down on the app and make it very difficult for us to upgrade to newer version and keep it current. And overall, all of these can have a negative impact on the customer experience and the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like a challenging environment. So Gaurav, when CGI works with teams like Nick and banking, financial services industry. How do these challenges that Nick described, how do they impact digital transformation efforts?
No, absolutely, and thanks for that background, Nick. I think whenever it comes to legacy modernization, we are looking at different challenges. It can be multitude, right? We can say, hey, what is going to be my new technology, how the governance will go, how the project management will go, what will be the security, where the right people will come in, and plethora of them, right? However, if I have to focus on main two challenges that we focus, which are, I think, the key to the to success, is the first one is really the domain knowledge. As Nick was saying, these legacy systems can be few years old, few decades old. They might be well documented. Most likely, they are not well documented, which means that there is a lot of tacit knowledge within the teams which are not available for modernization. And thus, the team which is working on modernization, their domain knowledge, the knowledge of that they acquire for the systems is most important. And that's where that is our first focus area, uh, because that will help us, do the right business rule synthesis, because we are looking at both operations and technology together. And then beyond the domain knowledge, the second one is really the skill required to modernize the application itself. Um, the technology is changing fast. Sometimes we are faced with the challenge of the technology that I'm choosing today, will it be available as a modern technology for a long time or not? Will my architecture stay modern or not? So those kind of decision making is important, and for that we need the right skilled people to be part of the team. And that's where CGI as a system integrator partner invest heavily to build that resource pool, which will not only understand the domain but also understand the future technology and how to implement it in today's realm.
All right, thanks, Gaurav. Let me see if I can summarize that. What I
Sure.
heard. So basically, these challenges that Nick's described impact digital transformation because they introduce friction due to a lack of domain knowledge of the legacy environment, right? And that's tied to some of the skills shortage or skilling shortage that Nick, that you were describing, just kind of the legacy. How do we understand that? How do we interpret that? And then forward looking the future building skills, right? To modernize. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And Craig, from a technology partner perspective, what do you notice about how legacy systems limit a bank's ability to adopt modern technologies?
Yeah, and I think Gaurav and Nick hit on a lot of the points already, so I won't belabor it. I think the skilling is an absolute paramount one, and I would actually look at it from both angles. One is the deprecation of legacy skill, but also the monolithic competition in terms of skill, right? Like, can Scotia, CGI, and Microsoft really acquire, or are we now competing with the startups and the TikToks and the et ceteras of the world? So I think the demand requires, how do we look at the app modernization paradigm using a different type of skill set? And I think that's paramount to what Scotiabank and CGI have been successful doing here. I think Nick hit really well on the ongoing maintenance. In my 12-year career here, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars spent on maintaining legacy software currency that, if you took all of that money and bundled up, we would be able to modernize the entirety of Bay Street 10 times over. The one part I'll probably add, just to augment sort of what the folks said, is, look, I think banks have a really difficult time. And I would want to double click, Sheila, on that 40% metric you called out, to say, of that 40%, I would assume that almost all of those would be large regulated organizations like bank. And we've seen with the US regulator entry into Canada, we've seen that it's just a bit more difficult. And so for me, I think about this concept of perform well transform. How does an organization like a bank perform and operate the bank well transforming? And oh, by the way, we're no longer investing in $200 million projects. Nick, we're going to give you a small budget and we expect you to return 10x before we then fund it again. And so I think the app development space is moving into this really interesting area where we need to stop getting away from extremely long and extremely costly projects and find out how we do incremental modernization. And I think the pandemic was a great example, right? Like if we thought about business models in banking going into the pandemic, or if we think about the massive wealth dispersion that's about to happen, specifically in Canada, the theses we had 5 years ago and the apps we started building would have been wasted investments. And so the ability to do things small and incremental is super important. Now, that all being said, the internal optimist in me thinks that the challenges pale in comparison to the opportunity we have here, right? And we'll let Nick and team talk about this shortly. But if you think about a world where we now have the opportunity to incrementally create value measured in hours and not months and years, long are the days when we used to disappear into a bunker and build an app and come out and hope for value. We're now seeing where we can modernize an application in a day, infuse it with AI, embed security and regulatory framework. I think the opportunity for us to do something really creative is we've never seen an opportunity of the era of AI like we have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Very exciting times. So with these challenges and opportunities in mind, let's talk about some of the strategies that organizations might adopt to modernize applications. So Nick, we'll go back to you. What can you share with us about your team's approach to transforming a legacy environment to create that seamless customer experience? How did you do it?
Perfect. Yeah. So we've got a number of strategies, and some of it was actually alluded to by Craig there in terms of, modernization is not necessarily just about technology. It's about business processes and incremental value. I always kind of make this statement all the time to my team. If we use technology to modernize something, if it's a bad process, at the end of the day, it's still a bad process. So, we've adopted growth mindsets. We've worked really hard to strengthen our business and IT partnerships through what we call domains and squads. And we're challenging existing processes together, looking at, implementing incremental change, simplifying wherever we can, a true front to back automation, and keeping the customer top of mind, making sure their feedback is there in terms of what we're delivering and incorporating that into future enhancements. And I would also say, what was needed yesterday may not be needed today or tomorrow, and we need to challenge that, and we are. We want to be leveraging more out of the box capabilities, similar to what's available through the Microsoft Power Platform. It's got out of the box AI, it's SaaS. SaaS helps cut down on customizations, which I talked about a bit before. It also streamlines the upgrade path. So, just like we're incrementing with our deliverables to the business, Microsoft is incrementally enhancing the Power Platform and bringing new capabilities to light. So, that's very beneficial, and staying current means that we can spend time on the things that matter for our customers rather than maintaining the platform. Had a lot of success this past year. We've got a number of enterprise Power Apps that deployed. One in particular is fully connected with APIs. It's got automated case indexing. It's doing data extraction and automated validation via OCR. It's got AI enhanced business rules, and it does real-time notifications for proactive client outreach. The next layer on top of that is to add a personalization layer. So kind of cool. And I guess just to wrap up in my particular space, the size of the prize per se is, there's 950 plus business processes to address, more than 16 legacy applications to decommission, a plurality of other components interspersed with all of that. So.
Wow, 950 plus business processes. So Gaurav, how does CGI come into a complex client environment like Scotiabank's with 950 plus business processes and very regulated? How do you come into that environment and help a client like Scotiabank?
No, absolutely. And these things sounds big when we look at overall, but as Craig and Nick has been saying, if we go methodically, piece by piece, do a right approach, these are achievable and will be achievable in future. And again, aligned with that, if we really see where we come in and how we come in, is look at some of the right things, or I would say basic things to look at, so that it tees up for the overall future success, right? When we come in, as Nick was saying, it's not a technology problem to solve. If we are solving a technology problem, we are not solving the future problem, right? So look at, when we are starting, look at the overall business case from a business process perspective. Look at the target state process with the client. And when we work with the client, we are able to help the clients like Scotiabank to streamline the business process itself before we start the modernization program. That will clearly demonstrate what the ROI will be, how the business process will become simpler, easier for the end customer to use, and will be more beneficial for the bank. And beyond the business case and the business process, when it comes to technology selection, you know, leverage our partner ecosystem. CGI works with various partners like Microsoft, bring the best of what is to offer from the partner ecosystems, and see the applicability of that in Scotiabank's environment. And that's where we work very closely with Craig and his team to bring that right solution for the bank, and then go really beyond technology itself. When it comes to implementation, how are we going to do the implementation? What is the governance that we have to put in place? How we are building up the right skills which will go for the implementation, and not just look at, do we need 10 people, 100 people, but look at what is the work to be done, what all things I can use latest and greatest technologies which are available, including responsible use of AI, to see what can be automated when we are going for the implementation. And I think when we bring all of these things together and create a very transparent environment to work together, 950 broken down into pieces becomes 950 success stories rather than the challenges.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Craig, Microsoft has been a key enabler in modernization efforts. Can you elaborate on how Microsoft works with its partners like CGI to bring innovation to help customers like Scotiabank to address application modernization challenges?
Yeah, I think the key word for me would be accelerate, and then maybe I would concat it with the word that Gaurav used, which is responsibly. And so responsible acceleration, I think, is key. And then I would ground that answer with what Nick referred to, which is this concept in terms of build versus buy, right? Like there's certain aspects of what are complex enough and are unique enough to your business that you absolutely want to make your own and your own special sauce. And then there's certain things like the infusion of AI and the infusion of basic infrastructure and something like a SaaS-based offering, which are areas where Microsoft has spent billions and billions of dollars, and you would benefit better from really adopting that framework and building on top of that, as opposed to bespoke creation of services that are available at commodity scale. Nick also mentioned the concept of growth mindset, which is actually fundamental to what Microsoft's entire corporate strategy is based on. One of which the pillars is building on the work of others. And I don't think there's a single product in Microsoft's portfolio that's more apparent in than Power Platform. It's what I'll almost call the ethical plagiarism tool. The ability to take the best of the partners that Gaurav referred to, whether that be SAP or Workday or ServiceNow or all these great integrations, bring those capabilities into a process, infuse them with AI on a platform that doesn't require any management or upkeep, and it's pure SaaS. I think that's a really special story in terms of how you can deliver that, what I'll call accelerated responsible value. I think then there's some additional things beyond them for organizations that are looking to figure out where they start, where we've created things like financial services accelerators, where we can say, look, we're not saying that we know how to be a bank better than you, but here's some great areas where you can start. Basic processes that will allow you to take cost out of the business or increase top line, that will allow these programs to become a little bit more fast funded. And then I'll touch just a little bit on CGI in terms of that same word, acceleration. I thought CGI brought a really interesting proponent to this project, which was using AI not in the traditional sense of how do we actually build client-based solutions, but how do we use AI to solve the modernization paradigm, which is the things that Nick referred to earlier. We don't even know what these applications do in some cases. They're not documented. They're so complex that we don't know the intricacies of them. And so I think bringing AI to that process to demystify a big part of that was really unique in this situation. I think something maybe we can unpack later on in the Q&A.
Sounds like a question in the queue.
Alley-oop.
Yep.
All right, so it does sound to me like the partnership here between Scotiabank, Microsoft, CGI is definitely one of the success factors in this journey. And as an alliance management professional, I love to hear that. So I want to dig into that a little bit more. So Nick, can you describe how partnering with Microsoft and CGI in this modernization initiative helped you to achieve the planned business outcomes?
Sure, absolutely. But before that, I do want to thank CGI and Microsoft for their ongoing partnership. I've worked very closely with Gaurav and CGI for the past several years. They helped me support a number of applications that sit in that modernization queue, and they've helped kicked off our foundational components for several of our modernization programs this year. So that's been really great. Microsoft is also a key partner. We, Scotiabank, we sit on one of their customer advisory boards, which gives us, a voice, an active voice when discussing future capabilities and the needs that the bank envisions. So that's been really great. The partnership between both has allowed them to bring like additional skills and experiences to the team, or my team and others, from a system integrator perspective as well as a platform provider. They've helped us engineer, some of our initial processes with a key eye for reusability. They've also been able to support us through some of the challenges that we've had. We've had connectivity challenges, but working closely together, we've been able to get through those things. And I think, as many of you will in the audience will appreciate, whenever you're bringing something new to production, or some new process or modernization, you do run into challenges and hurdles that you need to overcome, and Microsoft and CGI have both been able to help us overcome. And on the Microsoft side of things, actually, some of those challenges helped accelerate capabilities that they had in the pipeline to help us. And while they're helping Scotiabank, they also will help the larger community going forward. So that's been really great.
Nice, thanks. Craig, I'll jump to you. How does Microsoft's collaboration with the partner ecosystem accelerate application modernization outcomes for your customers? And I know you touched on that a little bit more, but I think we'd like to hear more.
Yeah, and I got to give Nick kudos for his response, because I think that integrated knowledge between the two firms helps us better our product. But I'll start with a very taboo response, which is at Microsoft, our mission is to empower every person and organization to achieve more. And I think that empowerment element is where I'll focus what we want to talk about here today. When it comes to very specific industry solutions, Microsoft has been convicted since day one that we do not want to be a bank, but rather we want to empower organizations like bank to accomplish and achieve more. And so I think the partnership we've got with Scotia, as Nick already alluded to, allows us to take the products that we create for scale cross vertical and ensure that they are supportable in regulated, secure, complex environments such as banks. And so I think as much as Scotia benefits from the relationship and the product and the capabilities that we provide, Microsoft reciprocally benefits from all of the great partnership with the likes of Scotia to ensure that those capabilities and functions and features are there. So I think that would be the first part of the answer. On the second, I think CGI provides what I'll call the marriage counseling, the ability to translate great capabilities to banking, and how do we ensure that these things are integrated in the right and correct ways that provide value back to the bank in the ways that the bank wants to see them, not necessarily just Microsoft. And so I think in this scenario, CGI did a really good job of helping define the capabilities that were required, helping improve the product roadmap, and then ensuring that Nick and his team see realized value from the products and capabilities that they're deploying and executing.
All right. And Gaurav, is there a critical success partnering best practice that you've lived through with this application modernization experience with Scotiabank and Microsoft that you'd like to share with others today on our call today?
Sure, absolutely. And if I say that everything went just nice and smooth, it will be wrong. But did we all come together as a team and overcame the challenges, the hurdles that we faced? That's the answer is 100%, right? And I think that's where as Craig was mentioning, the empowerment, the of the empowerment story of Microsoft is the key, right? They empower us to take over the solutions which they have built, the financial services solutions, the bolting up of different solutions, and then to bring it in the right realm for the bank. And on the bank side, uh, where do I start? The biggest challenge that any place will face is the courage of the leadership when things go wrong. And that's where Nick and the entire Scotiabank leadership showed tremendous courage. And they said, no, we are going in this path. We will face hurdles, but together we will find a solution and we will keep marching along. And to all our surprises, all the initial hurdles went away. We went into fast deployments, and then we have a successful story and many more to come. And so, courage is the first, I would say. The second one is really the whole governance side of things, right? How much of transparency can be built in the governance itself, whether it's the governance between CGI and Scotiabank, CGI and Microsoft. But more importantly, the best practice we saw really work very well was when the executive committee from all the three organizations were together. Uh, Initially, I remember once a week, then then once in 2 weeks, which then became for a little bit 2 times a week, and then back to once in 2 weeks, right? But in that executive committee itself, Nick brought not only the technology leadership, but also the business leadership, and everybody together looking at a problem or a solution is a major key to success, right? And that really worked in everybody's favor. We were able to unearth more business process improvements along the way of the project as well, and really get that to implementation. And so courage, governance, and then the usual stuff of the right solutions, working with Microsoft, working with Scotiabank, getting early exposure to Microsoft solutions, working with the bank to kind of create the marketplace concept, where when we are making the initial work, how can the different components that we are building can be reusable over a period of time, because it's not one time effort, it's not one application that we're modernizing. um, there are 950 applications, some of which we will help bank may take help of others and themselves. So how that ecosystem is built so that it creates the continuous success. I think these are the three things which come majorly to my mind.
Fantastic, really insightful. So thanks for sharing these lived experiences and insights from that. With that, we'd love to take a look and see if we have any questions from our audience. We do look forward to hearing from them. And so we do have one question here. Let me read it out, and I'll decide after I read it who it goes to. So the question reads, in my experience, balancing transformation efforts, application performance, infrastructure costs, and upskilling needs is crucial for successful modernization. How do you prioritize these elements in your planning strategy? And I think I'm going to hand that one to you, Nick.
Okay, great. Really great question, and as you said, it definitely is a balance, because as you're modernizing, more than likely you're carrying forward on the older application as you're moving to the new application. So taking a look at upskilling is probably one of the most important ones, to make sure that as we're building out the new technology, the team that was supporting, let's say, the older application is getting experience on the newer application. Most times we kind of will augment. We might reach out to CGI as an example here and bring in some of the skilled knowledge there, get the initiative off the ground, and then do like a knowledge transfer and a handoff. In terms of, like, I guess you mentioned performance and infrastructure costs, right? Those things we just factor into our upfront planning. But we also focus on that sort of incremental delivery as well, right? So depending on what it's doing, there might be a certain threshold of performance that we're willing to accept for a period of time to get something out into the market, and then continue to refine on top of that. There's on our side, you've probably heard it in our strategy. There's a big push for cloud acceleration. So managing infrastructure costs is also, a big factor, because we're moving to a, service-based model where you're paying for what you consume. And that has other implications in terms of development as well, right? To make sure that we're writing effective, efficient code, to make sure that we're not over-consuming what we need. And that's another kind of nice thing about leveraging some of the platforms, because that's all taking care of it for you, and you're just developing on the platform. So I think that's what I would say. Rob, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think Nick, you covered it very well. The only thing, if I have to look at from a balancing perspective, is really the strategies of when you're going live, go slow, rather than saying that, hey, I will cover up the entire national market. Experiment with, if I may say, friends and family branches first, or friends and family first. That's what we adopted here at the bank as well. The first applications that we went with, we chose few network pieces, go with that, and then keep on expanding as you go along, so that you can, see where you have balanced and what balance is working and not working. If what is not working, put some more efforts towards those non-working balancing portions, and get that in order as well.
Yeah, that's actually a really great reminder. And one of the nice things about doing that is, one, we got into production a bit quicker, but then was able to leverage it to flush out defects in sort of real time with production, grade data, production users friendlies in there, right? And so even though we had defects come out of that, it was still successful, because that's exactly what we wanted to do, to make sure that we had a solid product. So yeah, thanks for that reminder.
All right, we have another question here. Gaurav, I think this is for you.
Sure.
How does CGI plan to leverage emerging technologies to enhance the modernization of legacy applications for banking clients, ensuring both scalability and security over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think this is the $1 million question that everybody is waiting the answer for, right? Some bit of it we kind of covered. The biggest thing that we are investing as an organization is surely the domain experience for the people, right? That is the most important thing. As we were talking about old code, a lot of undocumented code. More than that, the business process that has to come together, and in every step of the way, use the partner ecosystem like Microsoft, like others as well, who can help us in discovery sessions of the product itself. When it is not documented, can I bring in the AI enabled tools from Microsoft and others to accelerate that process of discovery? When I go into development of the application itself, is there a code rewrite I can use using the technologies which are available? In this program, we used GitHub Copilot quite efficiently, right? So those kind of things. And then when it comes to, now that we are doing modernization, do it in the best way possible, bring the DevOps layer correctly, bring the automation and automation of automation when we are doing testing, and then go into the release itself. So really, don't just, like, we are investing a lot, and precursor to some of what material will also come through. Really focus on the entire development life cycle, and look at different new technologies which are available. That's where partnership with Microsoft really help us, because they are in the forefront of innovation, and we get early access to learnings from Microsoft on those things.
Well, related, this question here is for Craig. These learnings from Microsoft. So recently there was a Power Platform conference, as you're quite aware. The question is, many partners express anguish, and I've actually heard this, at how quickly things change in terms of new product features, new products themselves. Do you have any tips on how to keep up or even discern what needs to be learned, like right now, or risk being left behind versus what we can take some time to integrate into enterprise capabilities?
Yeah, I think there's a pro and con to the rapid evolution of product capability. I think the glaring benefit is that and Nick alluded to this as well, but by getting onto a SaaS-based platform, you benefit from the billions of dollars in R&D and the additional features and functionalities that the platform advances purely by sitting on that platform and riding that train. So I think the benefit is there. I think in terms of the question and some apparent drawback is one is ensuring that as we make large platform scale changes, that as Nick mentioned, where there's massive amounts of customization, we're not impacting application performance and or application architecture as a result of that. And so I think there's a design principle which we should adhere to or try to adhere to, which is lower customization, closer to native, allows the platform to manage the currency and those sorts of things. I think from a learning capability, I mean, I adopt and live by the concept of being a learn it all type individual, but really it's around leveraging and actually using technology, right? You're never going to be capable of knowing all of the advanced platform capabilities that come out, but we operate in such a world where fast fail is a real method of learning, right? Build an app, try things, see what's available. I think if we treat this as a pure academic exercise, that's probably a 60-hour-a-week job on its own. And so we very much drive, and most of you all know that Microsoft launched our global enterprise skilling initiative. That a big part of that was how do we get technology into the hands of folks that can actually have practical world experience to learn, as opposed to sort of living and breathing in standard LMS type solutions. And not an easy question, by the way, and also not a perfect answer. I think it varies and it's a diverse response depending on the type of learner as well. Right?
Yeah.
And Sheila, if I may add, right, that's where leverage partnerships with Microsoft. I mean, they have fantastic solution architects who are working on making sure that they are taking feedback from organizations like Scotiabank to evolve the product, and then give that information and that training to us so that we can then come back into this ecosystem and then implement for the banks.
Yep.
I was at that conference and there were some really cool new features shared at that, and there's some simple things you can do. You can just sign up to be part of the Power Platform community, right? There's a forum, you can interact with other like-minded developers or citizen developers or whatever capabilities you're building if you're on the business side, and share and ask questions. For your internal organizations, a community of practice is something good to set up. It's something that we have on our side. It's evolving and it's growing as we go, and we're sort of learning to adapt to some of the new features. Like even just yesterday, we're having a demo of a new Copilot scripting component, but we're actually using it in one of our applications already, and the other group, just became aware of that. So that community of practice needs to kind of evolve to make sure that we're sharing some more of those things. It's a work in progress, but yeah, being part of the community has its benefits.
Excellent, thanks. Gaurav, I have a question for you here. That being customer-centric, how do you capture relevant feedback and modernize what customers value most?
I think great question. I mean, if we are customer-centric, by definition itself, we are collecting feedback from the clients, right? And then if you really see, if we are in touch through various forums, both on the ground as well as the executive committee, we will get the right feedback that we are looking for, which is needed for the modernization program itself, right? When we look at what are the relevant pieces of modernization that we need to modernize, I think that's where we have the program committee which has the prioritization list, which will see the prioritization ranking, if I may use the word, right? And I think coming together, and then from the governance perspective, as well as taking the solution inputs from Microsoft, from bank's architecture team, and our own architecture team, I think will solidify the right priority, which are the things which needs to be looked at first, and be prioritized. Many times we have seen, though, like some things look super priority, like, hey, we have to do this. But when we go into deep, we say that, yes, from technology perspective looks good, but it needs a business process change before we can take it in the technology priority list. So put those things in the deprioritization list or the parking lot list, and then continuously work through that. I think that's where, adopting some of the agile practices really helps, from the overall success perspective. I don't know if anybody else have more to
I'll
add.
sorry, Nick, did you have a thought? If not, I'll add two sort of.
You go first, then I'll go second.
Yeah, I had two sort of thoughts, and these are from Microsoft's learning specifically. The first is prioritizing business value on the initial planning cycle. And I think in a historical world, most banks, most large organizations, Microsoft included, the business would say, go build this tech team. You're a submissive entity to the business. And then the tech team would run off and build it and then hope the value got returned. We've seen a massive shift at Microsoft where we now have the business define the problem statement, but provide far more freedom to the technology organization to deliver upon that business imperative. And the example I always use is the line of business who operates and runs marketing for Teams says, we need to capture another $100 million hypothetically, or 100 million users of Teams. In a historical world, they would have said, go build these 4 things for that to happen. In our new world, they go to the development team with that problem statement. The development team says, well, that's interesting. We actually have a feature request that has about 200 million new client ads waiting for it. And so they prioritize. So I think the relationship between how business prescribes to technology and trust in technology to deliver the right capability will help with that prioritization. And then the second part, which I think Gaurav touched on at a high level, is making the feedback loop part of the native product capability. You'll notice in things like Microsoft Office now, and every one of our capabilities, we have something as basic as a smiley face and a frowny face. And while that may seem very gamified, that actually develops right back into our product loop, so that we understand that which capabilities clients are actually enjoying, which ones they're not. We marry that with telemetry, and now all of a sudden that value realization is actually built directly into our software development lifecycle. I don't know, Nick, if you had.
Yeah, I was just gonna sort of build upon the prioritization you're talking. So definitely, and I mentioned, I think in one of the first questions is around that partnership between business and technology, to drive business outcomes. In our squads, we have business folks, we have developers, we have testers, we have BAs. Like it's a cohesive unit, and we respond in kind to business priorities or customer feedback. I'd also say the teams will go and sit regularly with users, or go sit in the branches and observe and collect feedback from people that are interacting and front facing with customers, and then bring that back to say, we thought this was a good idea. This is how it's actually implemented, and we may need to make some tweaks. What do you think, right? And then they work through that, and it's been highly successful, I believe, in terms of some of the products that we've been deploying and watching them evolve, responding to that.
All right, thanks, guys. This next question, I think I'm just going to link it back to something that you said, Craig, earlier about how CGI used AI to demystify a modernization paradigm. I thought that was a fantastic phrase. I wrote it down. So the question is, how is AI reshaping legacy modernization, and what strategies can organizations adopt to leverage AI for faster, safer modernization? So maybe just elaborating on how AI was used in this instance.
Mm-hmm.
I'll touch on 3. So that was for me, right?
Yes, I'm looking.
Yeah.
Yes. You go first, Craig. Yeah,
I'll touch on sort of 3 areas. I alluded earlier on in the discussion that CGI had used some really interesting process and technology that would actually allow us to take the first step in what we call low code and no developer automation, right? Utopia looks like you run an LLM on an application and it spits out the other side like a brand new application. And frankly, I think we're years, if not ever, away from that being a reality. What I think is a super reality right now is decoupling and demystifying an application to say, what are the dependencies and what are the logical fault points, whether those be line of business or function or technology, where we can carve small pieces out and demonstrate value at a smaller scale as opposed to redeveloping a monolithic application. And that ranges from everything from documentation to code dependencies to really just looking at dormant code and how can we potentially rationalize out parts of that component. And I think CGI partnering with Scotia did an impeccable job around this program. The second part of the modernization of AI, and this is maybe an antagonizing thought, is if folks are really looking at what consists of an application, right? It's really input and output, some processing in the middle, and then back end, which really generates some data. I really think that there's an untouched market around how we use modern UI through the use of large language models. And so if you think about every major application, what is the number one preventative reason for success? It's typically end user training and complexity in the UIs. I think there's a real interesting modernization experience that occurs where we start using AI as the UI for monolithic applications. And then the back end of the application has a lot less dependency and opens itself up for more modernization principles and opportunity.
Very interesting. Nick, Gaurav, did you want to add to that?
I mean, if I may, think about like similar lines, but I'll take it a little bit more wider as well, right? So if I look at, in a simpler way, when we are looking at the legacy application, the documentation of as is the first frontier where the AI can be absolutely be useful. The second is when we are writing the code itself. There is a lot of some of the studies says that about 20% of the code can be rewritten as is when we are looking from legacy to the modern application. That's where a lot of AI can be used for writing. At the same time, when we are modernizing an application and we are looking at hyper personalization, etc., that's where the AI can again help not only for a legacy modernization but any application right, and those principles can be plugged into that. I think, and then into testing itself, right? Testing is another new space where AI is really helping not only to write the test cases from the business process itself, but do the automation of automation. But overall, if you look at the customer service, add a customer service on top of the overall offering on an application, that's when agent training, agent support, those kind of things start coming in, which can really help the overall cost of ownership of the application go down when we look at the holistic view of the application itself. Nick, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would say AI is revolutionizing what we do with legacy systems because it's providing us with capabilities that weren't available before, right? Around decisioning, right? A big focus is around automation and only really looking at exceptions, right? And in the past, those exceptions have they've been complex. Sometimes they require like a human to take a look at them, whereas with AI and the way it's evolving and being able to access information from those large language models, it can predict and take a pretty good decision. And there are thresholds that we need to monitor and review to make sure that it is doing what we want it to do. But it can really kind of cut down on sort of some of the manual things that are associated with legacy systems. On the testing side of things, it's great. It's natural language. You can basically type out a few scripts to say, I want to generate, X number of test cases doing this, and this. You could add some parameters to it, click a button, and away it goes. And you can make, adjustments in real time. And it's very intuitive for the users to use. And picking up on what Craig said around having, the AI built into the UI, it's great. How awesome would it be as a developer to sign into an application and say, like, what's this application doing? What are the capabilities? Ask it and puts it there, tells you everything you need to know, and have that kind of built in as the documentation. So now you're automating documentation instead of necessarily like writing it out. You can link it up. And then on the user side of things, I'm a new user coming in. What's this application doing? How do I use it? And have the training like built right in. It's just one sort of one-stop shop for people to come in. So lots of exciting things there. Lots of, I would say incremental changes that will happen. And when we look back, 1 year's time, 2 years time, it'll be quite impressive in terms of how it's evolved and what we're using it for.
All right, thank you. We have a slightly related question, so I'm just going to ask that, and if there's something you want to add to what's already been shared, please do. How do you manage risks? And maybe Nick, we'll start with you. How do you manage risks in modernizing monolithic applications in banking, ensuring SPI sensitivity and security on the cloud?
Yeah, we've got whole teams that sort of are focused and dedicated to make sure that what we're proposing is safe. There are certain situations where we'll say it's not safe. We're going to keep it over here, say on-prem, and that's just okay. But we're constantly, working with Microsoft and other providers to make sure that their security is up to the standards that we require, as well as on our own side, the way that we're connecting. So that's kind of the main one. In terms of, I guess, overall risk to from an application monolithic perspective, that's just kind of as we're going through the project, being transparent, surfacing issues, connecting with our partners for any particular solutions. So yeah.
All right, thanks. I'm gonna move on to some of the other questions so we can get through them all. This next one, Gaurav, let's see if you can take this one. How do you support team members in adopting software changes to ensure that their day-to-day activities are done? So basically, it sounds like an upskilling or skilling question.
I think skilling, upskilling, making sure that members are fully trained, I think is one most relevant questions which have been there in the system integration world forever. And I think it is more and more relevant in today's world, right? As the applications or the technology evolution becomes faster, we see a lot of technologies like RPA. 4 years ago, it was like the hottest topic. Today, nobody's talking about it. That means we have to reskill ourselves, right? We have to be ready to be in a learning mode. That's what I think Craig said as well. There are a lot of resources available, a lot of investment which happens from the organizations like ourselves to make sure that our partners are reskilled. They have the access to various tools, technologies, resources from Microsoft, partnering with Scotiabank. Documentations available from Scotiabank when you have to learn a domain. The chat groups for asynchronous collaborations. There are the learning cycles which come every 2 weeks to go and learn. It's up to us as individuals to be in a constantly learning model, right? I will never say that there has to be a stick from a KPI perspective on somebody to say that if you do not do the learning, there is a problem. It is for us to realize that as technologists in today's world, doesn't matter what role we are playing, we all have to be in a constant learning mode. And I think the one thing which all of us can play on the panel as leaders is to motivate everybody to spend time, take time out of working, non-working time, and then put towards learning. I think that is the biggest investments we all can do in ourselves.
Yes, and I know the question was actually, they were wondering about adopting the changes. And so I think your comment about the community, building a community around that really helps with adoption. So yeah, thanks for that. Craig, question for you from a Microsoft technology partner perspective. What emerging technologies do you believe will have the biggest impact on the banking sector in the next 5 years?
And the answer cannot be AI, is it?
It's got it, right? Yeah. I'll say responsible AI, right? There's no doubt that right now AI feels like cloud did in 2012, where we know we need it, but the specific use cases probably weren't as clear. I think there's very apparent use cases around things like Copilot and the adoption of that for the alleviation of human capital and freeing people up to do more things that require real brain power. I think those things are glaring in AI. I think from the things that Nick has talked about, the process automation that removes mundane tasks that cost the bank a lot of money, which again free up capital for them to go different things. But I think we're going to see many evolutions of this AI thing occur. If you think about even in the past 12 months, the initial conversations we had around AI versus what we're talking about now, and things like the risk space have massively matured. So I think AI, how we look for the right use cases that are data driven, And I think that's super important that we're, if I give the example of one large federally regulated bank in Canada who has 342 active AI projects, my question would be, which one of those that actually have hypotheses that are data driven, that have results, and that you can actually measure? So I think the importance of that's there. But I think just in general, if I say what I think will have the biggest impact on the banking sector, is those that can figure out to take these technologies and adopt them to what future of banking is going to look like. And I think I mentioned the wealth dispersion earlier. I think the generational wealth transfer that's about to occur specifically in Canada, whoever can take technology to develop products to service markets that we've never served. I'm talking about 70% wealth transfer to women. I'm talking about younger generations who are getting massive inheritance. They don't want to bank the way they bank today. So how do we take these new technologies, adapt them to services and capabilities that service those market? And I'll bet my very small wealth that whoever does that will be the leading player in Canadian banking, 100%.
Lovely, thank you. So I apologize to the audience that we won't be able to get through all your questions because I do want to summarize, not summarize, but just highlight some of the nuggets we heard today. And then I'm just going to give you guys a heads up. I'm going to ask you in 30 seconds or less what tip you would leave our audience with if they're going through the same initiative of modernizing their applications in a legacy environment. So before I do that, these are some of my takeaways that I caught. I just thought I'd share that with everyone. I heard that focusing on not technology but business process is one of the key success criteria. Delivering incremental value was another one. Being a learning organization, like we're never going to be the experts and that's done, right? So constant learning, fail fast, building a community of learners. Also, in terms of technology, AI as the new UI for modernizing monolithic applications. I think that's really fantastic. So thank you to each of you. And with that, Nick, I'm going to start with you. Do you have a tip you would like to leave our audience with?
I got just a few points. I touched on it before. Adopt that growth mindset. Incremental changes. Start small. Build the momentum. Momentum can be infectious and in a good way. Foster collaboration across business and technology and with customers. Leverage the data as well for decisions. And the last piece is with anything in life, really, just stay agile, be adaptable, navigate your challenges, and have the courage to seize opportunity. If you think something is a great idea, go for it, learn from it. If you have to fail fast, but if it's successful, just keep going.
Thank you. Gaurav?
I will not be able to add too much to what Nick said, but I'll just reiterate, right? Similar lines. Plan well, work with the business, integrate well with all the partners. Have courage to speak up. Many times we don't have that. That is the detriment. Speak up. Focus on governance and take constant feedback, both from people who are working on the project, but also from the field itself, which you can integrate into the product itself.
Thank you. And Craig?
I would say just try things and try them in a secure, compliant, risk managed, not adverse, but risk managed fashion. If you ask me where AI is going to be in 2 to 5 years, I couldn't tell you. What I can say is if you travel in Northeast in this general direction, you'll land in the right place. And the story I always say is March 2016, 8 years, so long before the generation of AI, Microsoft launched what was arguably one of the worst AI experiments on Twitter. And we learned more from that experience than anything else. And so we took our secure foundation from that. We took our responsible AI program from that. We built all the fundamentals of responsible AI from a trial 8 years ago. And so even from the bad comes the good, and from the good comes great. Go try is what I'd say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nick, Gaurav, Craig, and our amazing audience. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your questions. We are done for today, and there will be a QR code that comes up next, which you can scan for more information. All right, so thanks to everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks Sheila, for hosting very well. Thanks everyone for joining in.
I know.